Hey, Miko, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello, Miko.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, we are so excited to have you on this show. Like, we are huge fans. We follow you strongly on Instagram, and you are definitely making an impact and just helping people change their lives financially and also entrepreneurially. So we're so excited to have you on this show to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, all about who you are and what you do, can you just say hello to everyone that is tuned in and let them know what you are all about?
Yeah, hello guys. I'm the budget mom, and I really started my blog back in 2016. And the budget mom is really there to inspire and give hope to people on their financial journeys by sharing all of this crazy knowledge that I've learned along the way on my own. And so it's been 9 years since I started my first budget, but I've been sharing my real numbers and my real story since 2016.
Yeah, and I think that's why I love your content so much, is because you've been extremely transparent. So let's talk about your story. What actually evoked you to start financially? So because now you're debt free, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so tell our audience, how much debt did you have? How did you get into debt, and how long did it take you to pay it off?
So I'm like a lot of people out there. I was a student and I came out of college with a ton of student loan debt, as well as credit card debt. So my financial journey is a little bit different in that it was also a self-discovery journey as well. So a lot of my spending decisions and my mistakes were caused by emotional triggers that I wasn't aware of when I first started. And it was really about learning to love myself. And with that came learning how to manage my finances efficiently. But I came out with a ton of debt, and I was that person out there trying to figure it out. I started working in the financial industry, and it was embarrassing. I was a financial professional, and I didn't even know how to budget my own money. And it felt defeating. I felt like I didn't belong there. I thought to myself, how can I provide this knowledge to people if I can't even do it myself? And so I started on the journey of learning how to budget. And I paid off my debt in about 8 months, but I had my student loan debt since 2011. It was about $78,000 in debt, and I paid that off in last November.
Wow.
Man.
Wow. Now we get a lot of messages. You guys, we get your emails, we see your inbox messages. I love your stories, but you guys don't tend to showcase people that are single or divorced. And I'm like, we have a ton of people that we interview that are on here that don't necessarily have a partner to help pay off the debt and things like that. So tell our audience a little bit about your story. You were once married and now you're divorced. And I think that's what actually sparked you to say, you know what, I think I need to get out of debt and I need to take a hold of my financial future.
Exactly. Yeah. The day my son was born, gosh, what a life change. And I still, to this day, I still get emotional about it just because it's just this overwhelming feeling of love and responsibility. And as me and my husband were married, and we ended up getting divorced, which threw me into the realm of being a single mom and going from 2 incomes down to 1, and really jumping out in this world all by myself. And that was a very scary thing. I had this little itty bitty boy who completely depended on me, and it became no longer just wanting to manage my finances. I had to learn how to. Giving up was not an option. Failing was not an option. And I think I really used that as drive and motivation and dedication in everything that I did, not just with my finances, but in my life in general. And so my son is a huge part of my story. And there are still nights where I sit up at night and I'm like, it's amazing how one 6-year-old boy can have so much influence on what you're doing, and he doesn't even know it. And for me, that's very overwhelming, but at the same time, it's very motivating.
Now, you said that you went on for a while, just kind of going through the motions when it came to your debt and just, making payments here and there. And then all of a sudden, you went into hyper mode and ended up knocking out over $70,000 of debt in 8 months, which is
yes.
What?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was, the funny thing is I was like, my financial advisor said, you need to sit down and create a budget. And I started doing the robot work. I sat down, I went online, I Googled it. I was thrown a bunch of monthly templates, and people telling me to write these specific categories and these numbers. And I failed time and time and time again. It wasn't until I realized that my life was very unique and that creating a budget was probably one of the most personal things that I ever would create. It's a complete reflection of who you are, your goals, your passions, your dreams. And it's so completely personal. And once I realized that, and I went into that hyperdrive mode of really making it my own and customizing it to my life, did my budget and my finances truly start to blossom.
Man, I love that. I love that. So what were the steps that you took? Once you took the budget, you created your own, because I definitely see you on Instagram. I mean, your printables are amazing. You just recently launched and sold out of your first like budget planner, and now you're going to be launching another planner. So yeah, tell us, how did you even come up with the concept to say, you know what, I need to get very unique and I need to create a budget that is specific to my needs?
So really in the beginning, I started doing every budgeting method that I can find. So literally the paycheck method, the half payment method, the percentage method, any method out there, I have tried it. And time again, I would fail. And honestly, I got very discouraged. And for about a year, I gave up budgeting. I'm like, okay, this is not working for me. I'm failing. It's just not for me. And I stopped doing it for about a year, just out of pure frustration and stress. And finally, one day, my advisor said something to me. He said, you will always feel regret with your money unless you sit down and tackle it. You have to keep going. And so I changed my mindset. I was no longer thinking negative. I was like, okay, well, some of these methods, yes, I failed. But in a lot of different aspects with each one, I also succeeded. So what are the areas that I really prevailed in these methods? And so I started picking them apart. But not only that, I started asking myself the hard questions. Why am I succeeding with this part? Why am I failing with this part? And so my budgeting method incorporates 3 different budgeting methods, kind of all mushed into one system, step-by-step system, that those steps and those parts of that method really, I felt, were truly important to creating a unique, successful budget.
Wow. Now, as you progressed and moved forward, because this was new territory for you. Like you said, you're doing a bunch of research, trying and failing, but then it began to stick and make sense, and you begin to make progress. What was the most challenging part, going from just kind of getting by with your debt to putting your foot on the gas and going 100 miles an hour? Talk about that transition. Was it strenuous? Was it something that you just got better at day by day? Talk about that transition.
So the biggest thing for me and the biggest struggle for me on my budgeting journey was learning to love myself and admitting out loud why I was spending money. And it was very embarrassing at first, and I didn't want to say it out loud or admit it, but I was spending money because I didn't like who I was, and I was comparing myself to everybody else. I saw my friends with all these nice clothes and all these nice things that I didn't have. I saw other moms providing certain lives for their children and having all these opportunities with them, things that I wasn't able to provide for my son. And I started asking myself, well, why am I spending money that I know I don't have? And so really figuring out my emotional and psychological triggers behind my money management was the first struggle. And to this day, I still struggle with it. It's not something that I feel like I think it will always be a part of me, but having a method and a plan in place that prevents me and sets me up for success rather than failure has really helped me with that struggle. As far as my debt, my debt, when I first started, I didn't have a lot of extra money to pay down my debt. I barely had enough money for food on the table and gas in my car. And so one of the things that I started doing was looking at all of the expenses that I felt I had to pay. Now, these were things that that for me were really stressful because I felt I had no other option. So I started doing the investigative work. I started cutting down on my regular bills. I started literally calling my phone company, my car insurance company, my medical insurance company, and I started asking questions. And I was very honest with them. Hey, look, I'm having trouble meeting these obligations. Do you have something more affordable? And surprisingly, 90% of them said yes. And that's where I found a lot of extra money to make headway on my financial goals, like paying off debt. And then it was also, I felt I'm not making fast enough progress. You know, when we pay off debt, it's like it can't go away quick enough. And even though we might be throwing thousands of dollars at it, it's almost like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. And so I was that mom that went out and I tried to make extra income. And for me, that was learning photography. And I took it full force. I watched every YouTube channel that I could. I stayed up nights, overnights. There were some nights I didn't even sleep. And, you know, that also provided me a little bit of extra money. And then came my business. You know, the Budget Mom was started in 2016. And I really attribute to my debt payoff to my successful business, as well as budgeting my money and not giving in to lifestyle inflation as my income increased.
Policy Genius guarantees the best life insurance price for you and those you love. It's so simple to protect your family today in 5 easy steps. 1. Calculate quotes. 2. Compare companies. 3. Apply online. 4. Receive expert advice. And 5. Rest easy. It really is that simple. Calculate, compare, apply with Policy Genius. For more info, head on over to hisandhermoney.com/Policy Genius.
Let's talk about some of the other lifestyle changes that you had to make. I mean, in order to pay off that amount of money in such a short period of time, that's remarkable. I remember hearing you say something to the fact that you felt guilty when you first got divorced and you wanted to be able to still provide for your child. So you went out and like charged like all of the items in his room just to kind of give him that life. But then you realized like that wasn't the answer. So you had to make some lifestyle changes that even involved your son. So talk about that and talk about how did you approach this with your son?
So yes, exactly. You know, my divorce in the beginning was very hard for me to talk about because I thought that people would look at me for my values of the pure fact of my divorce. That would, you know, and that would kind of represent the values I have as a person. And so I was very afraid to talk about my divorce. I was very embarrassed. I was very ashamed. And the overwhelming amount of guilt that I had towards my divorce with my son, you know, here I was, I didn't know how my divorce was going to affect my son. And that was very hard for me to deal with. So I was that mom that when my son asked for something, I would say yes, just to make him happy, right? I was overcompensating for all this huge amount of guilt that I was feeling. And I went out, and you're right, I went out and I bought, you know, I wanted one sanctuary. I call it a comfort zone. I wanted to give my son a comfort zone, and that was his room. So I went out, and that's how I got back into credit card debt. I racked up all my credit cards. And over time, I realized that my son didn't need a comfort zone. He needed me. And he needed my time and my attention and my ears. He needed someone to listen to him, to ask him how he was feeling. And so what we started doing is we stopped associated fun with spending money. So I thought to have all these opportunities with my son meant I had to spend money. And over time, I realized how important my quality time with my son was. And I started noticing a change in him. His laughter changed. He was smiling more often. He was being more open with mom. He was telling me how he felt without me having to ask. And it all came down to quality time. So now what we do, we gave up all the spendy activities. You know, like I wanted to take him to the water park, you know, down the street that costs $100 to get in. Instead now, we're fine going to the park for free. We're still spending time together, but spending money doesn't have to be a part of that.
Miko, you just set a lot of people free. Like seriously, because I think what you went through was probably the norm. I think a lot of parents in general, whether divorced or married, you feel guilty and you equate, you know, giving your child happiness through spending money and providing for them like just extra things that, to be honest, they don't really need. And really all your children need, they want time. They want time with you. I love that. So let's talk about the business. I think what's so remarkable about your story, Tyler and I, we are huge on financial independence. I mean, huge on becoming debt-free, but we're also big components of building wealth, whether it be starting your own business or real estate or whatever the case may be. Talk about your journey into entrepreneurship, because your story became very public. You decided to take it online and to be as transparent as possible. And you're also making money.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's crazy. And I still wake up today and I can't even believe how far the Budget Mom has come. I started the Budget Mom with no intentions of starting a business, with no intentions of making money. And so it's kind of remarkable that it's kind of, taken this turn, and now I'm running a 7-figure business. And I never thought in my wildest dreams, and I get a lot of questions like, what are you doing to get here? I'm like, I don't know. It just kind of happened this way. But I started thinking about it more and more. And my entrepreneur journey, it's not an easy one because I am so transparent with my numbers. But I also knew, like, when I started my business, it took me 2 years to get up enough courage to go on video. Like, I was petrified. All I could think about is what are people going to think about me? Are they going to say mean things about me? The way I look, the way I dress, are they going to judge me? And so I stayed off camera. I stayed behind my computer just typing out blog posts. And I really realized I could reach and help more people through video. So I had to get over my fear. And one day I just did it. And now, of course, it's just a regular part of my life. And I love it because I can connect with my readers in a whole new way. But my business and my journey, there's ups and downs because I still struggle today, sharing my real numbers and my personal life online. Some days it's very hard, but I do everything and I take those risks because I honestly don't feel that I can help the people the way I am without showing them what it truly looks like to have a successful budget in someone's real life. That's what I craved when I started doing my budgeting journey. I was tired of being thrown examples. I had burning questions. I wanted to know, okay, you're telling me to do this with my money, but why? Why are you making these decisions with your money? And I want to know why it's a good decision in my personal life. What is the mindset that you have? What are the questions that you're asking? What are you feeling when you're making these decisions? And so those psychological components and how closely it's tied to money management, I think is often forgotten, and it's not talked about enough because our emotions and our feelings drives our spending. It drives our financial decisions, whether we save for retirement, whether we pay off debt, whether we do both. And so I think it wasn't a topic that was talked about enough. So I made it my mission to set out there in the world and to show what it really looks like in someone's real life. And after I started being transparent with my numbers, I found my tribe, that tribe that I was looking for, people to connect with, someone to say, Miko, I know how you feel as a single mom. I know why you're crying in the corner of your living room because I've been there. But girl, don't be upset. I got you. I wanted that tribe. And as I was searching for them, they were searching for me. And that's why the TBM family community has grown as much as it has.
So powerful.
So now you probably inspire tons of people that are listening right now. They're like, yeah, maybe I should take my story and maybe I can help people. Mm-hmm. What would be your advice to someone who that thought just popped into their head? Because you've been in the game for a few years now. You've had some wins, you've had some losses. So if you had to go back to the start line and you were talking to somebody saying, this is how you should start the journey, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, be in love with who you are first. For me, it was about building a backbone because here's the thing, it's hard and you're not going to be able to please anyone. And the decisions that you make are personal. And sometimes people aren't going to agree with that. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with those opinions that conflict with your own. And you have to learn to embrace them. But not only that, I think really you have to stay true to who you are. Your values and your beliefs as a person has to stay consistent. Because, when you're starting a business and you're going online, you're going to get pulled in 10,000 directions. But the one thing that should stay constant is you. I really think that's truly important. It's the one thing that I have leaned on on my business journey is making sure that I never go against my own beliefs and values, and I never do anything for the pure fact of making money. And those are the two things that I really, really have stuck to on my business journey. And I think it's truly important.
Yeah. So how did you start to build the revenue for your business? I mean, I think it's remarkable that you are a 7-figure business, and it really all started by you just being honest and transparent about, hey guys, I'm not really good with money, but hey, take this journey with me. So talk about the ins and outs to that part, the revenue part, because I know we get a lot of people that ask, well, like Ty and Tyler, how do you guys make money? And we shared videos as well too. So how can one make money online?
So for me, really what started happening were my readers were saying, they're seeing these tools that I was using in my real life, my worksheets, my printables. They're like, oh my gosh, that could make my budgeting journey so much more fun if I had that. I would be excited to work on my finances if I had that, or I feel like I would be more organized. So I started getting more and more readers that said, hey, could you make this available to the masses? And it never occurred to me to do that before. And so, I started launching products as just printables, something that I knew I could do and produce because I was doing it in my own life, but I could still make it cost effective and affordable for my true audience. So printables and selling my own products is a big chunk of my income. Now, I am one of the weird type of businesses out there. I don't spend a dime on marketing, advertising, or promotion. So in fact, to be completely 100% honest, if someone told me to make a Facebook ad right now, I have no clue to even where to begin. Because I have such a connection and relationship with my readers, and because I honestly do believe, and the testimonials out there really do prove, my products change lives. So my readers do the marketing for me. And I think that's really important. And it's been a huge factor on my success as far as my products. But also, as my business grew, so did my expenses. And I knew that in order to grow with my audience and to provide even more help in areas that I felt like people were struggling, I had to make more money. So for instance, my blog, I started out with 100 readers a day, and now we're over 1 million a month. With that comes website maintenance. And I had to learn how to cover the costs of website upkeep. And for me, that was putting ads on my website. For 2 years, I was completely ad-free on the Budget Mom. But with more traffic, obviously, comes more maintenance. So it's those types of things. So ads is a small way, but really it's my products and my ads that makes a big portion of the Budget Mom. It's funny because I really don't spend a lot of time exploring a whole bunch of different ad revenues. I do it to help my readers, and those are the things that I really, really focus on.
So awesome. Another thing that I really love that you do, you involve other people. Like I'm talking about partners. You go and visit your tax accountant, and you sit down with him or her, and you sit down with them on a regular basis. So tell our audience a little bit about the partners that you have and how you maintain just precise direction. I think because you have your hand on it, even on a monthly basis, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. She sits down with her accountant like every month, I believe, right? And it gives you direction and gives you goals in order to achieve higher success, even in your company.
Right. Yeah. So I'm very hands-on. Oh my. And if you talk to the people that I work on, they're like, or work with, they're like, oh yeah, Miko's down here every day checking on things like my printing press. They just let me come in and run that place because I'm so hands-on. But I think it's very important. I might be an accredited financial counselor. I may have worked with financial advisors for over 9 years in the financial industry. I may have had all my designations, but that does not mean I have all the knowledge. I heavily rely on experts and advisors that know more than I do, that have more experience than I do. So yes, I meet with my accountant every month because one, I need to be solidified in the decisions that I'm making. I kind of need that person back there saying, yes, Miko, you're thinking straight, okay? But also, he knows a lot more about business finances than I do. So I lean on him heavily. my printing press, the people who are printing my products and shipping them out and fulfilling and doing all these things. I'm down there every day because here's the thing. As my business grows, I know my team needs to grow. I would never ask a team member to do something I'm not willing to do myself. I love getting down and dirty. You know, when we did our last launch in April, I probably touched every single package that went out. I packaged them all, I shipped them all. And I think it was important for me to learn that area of my business before asking someone else to do it. Because you can't expect something of someone if you don't even know the job yourself. And so I'm very hands-on. So, and then not only that, I have a branding and graphic design team. I work with a business here in town. I meet with them every week because I truly like to be involved in every area of my business, and I'm hands-on that way, and I think it's really important.
So I don't want you to skip the fact that you did literally touch just about every single planner that went out, and tell our audience how many that was. That was over 5,000.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So I run a debt-free company. And so, the way that I manage my money personally has really trickled into how I want to run my business. And that means that I cannot have an infinite supply of inventory, even though I wish I could. And so I was expecting, we would sell 100 a day or so until I eventually sold out. We made 5,000 of the initial product, and we sold out in a matter of days. And it was insane. And me and my team, in the printing press, we were not prepared for that. And so I took it upon myself to get these suckers out as fast as I could, which means I was down at that printing press 9-10 hours a day. And there were some nights, I don't think I've ever pulled so many overnighters in 1 week. But I'm really glad I went through that experience. I'm glad that I touched every box because, one, I wanted to show my readers that I cared, that I was willing to work hard because I cared and I appreciated their business. But two, I felt like it was important for me to learn the things that we could do better next time. And who was more better to know that than me, right? And so I'm really glad I went through those struggles because it really taught me, oh my gosh, these are the areas we can improve. And so it was really important.
We've seen people sink their businesses by spending too much money up front and then playing catch up all along the way. Talk about how you started, grassroots, and then slowly started to pay for this, pay for that, get a partner here, getting a partner there, and maintain your debt freedom. Talk about your mindset and your strategy and when to spend money and how to spend it to continue to grow your business.
So I think as a business, it's really important to focus on the things that, like for me, my number one thing with the Budget Mom is helping people. And so I prioritize what I do. How can I help the most people with the product or what I'm going to create? Is this truly going to change lives? I prioritize. I also to do the launch that we did in April, I had to save for over a year just to do that first launch. And that was me saving every single penny that I made from my business. But I just got done paying off all my debt. Debt is still a very terrifying thing for me. But I also knew that I didn't want to do the product cycle. And what I mean by that is launching a product and using that money for your next product and using that money for your next product, because here's what's going to happen. You're never going to have leftover income. If you're constantly in that hustle of trying to pay for the next product and you're falling behind, I knew I wanted to be prepared up front, which means I had to save that cash for the full year before I could even launch. Even though I desperately wanted to launch my products earlier, I had to be that patient spender and do the best thing I could for my business, and that was not going into debt.
I love that. So walk us through the moment when you paid off your last debt payment.
Oh my gosh, I cried. I'll never forget the video that I did on my Instagram. I just got out of the bank after paying off my last debt, which was my car loan. And my son was at school. He was honestly the first person I wanted to tell. But I remember I turned on my video camera in my car to tell my readers what had just happened, and just tears. Like I couldn't even control myself. I was feeling emotions, but I was just kind of all over the place. And it was mostly like, I can't believe that just happened. Here is a moment that for so long I told myself this is impossible, and here I was, and it was possible. And for me, that was very overwhelming. And not only that, I felt like a new life had started, not just for me, but for my son. And I remember I got home and my son was, picked my son up from school, got him home, and I said, guess what mom did today? And he goes, what? And I said, mom just paid off her last loan. And he goes, oh my gosh, mom, your hair looks so pretty today. He had no clue. He had no clue what I was saying, but we cried together. I literally broke down holding my son. In a way, it was me thanking him for something that he didn't even know that he did, for being this huge motivation on this journey and my debt journey. And so I celebrated with my son.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So your next financial big goal that you've been very transparent about is that for saving for a home. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So, before I quit my full-time job, I knew I wanted to buy a house. I've been in this itty bitty 800 square foot apartment that was built in like the 1970s. I have the grandma appliances that are all this ucky, rusty brown. And I wanted to buy a house for me and my son. I wanted him to have a backyard and a place we could really call our own. But I also knew that I was moving into self-employment. So I struggled. Do I finance it or do I pay it in cash? And I actually had another blogger reach out to me and she said, girl, if you're thinking it, you can do it. And it somehow just made me do this extra push where it was like, you know what? I'm thinking this big goal. It's okay. I can think this big. It is possible for me to do this. So I'm buying my first home with cash. And this will be my dream home. This will be my forever home. I didn't want to do the real estate game of buying a fixer-upper, then using the equity to buy a bigger house, then using the equity to buy. I don't want to uproot my son again. I want this to be our place that we call ours forever. And so it is going to be a big journey, but I'll tell you what, the day that it happens is the day that I kneel down and I thank God that I followed my heart. And for me, that's what true financial freedom is going to feel like.
Wow, that is amazing. So for everybody that wants to get in touch with you and stay up to date with your journey, how can they find you?
Yes, so I do a video every day on my Instagram. Instagram is definitely where I'm most active. It's where I share my day-to-day spending, my thoughts, everything in between. So that's at The Budget Mom. You can also find me on my blog, thebudgetmom.com, or my YouTube channel. We just launched that about 4 weeks ago, and that's The Budget Mom channel over on YouTube.
Wow,
Awesome.
This has been amazing. You have inspired a ton of people. Congratulations to
Congrats.
you on your
And
debt
keep up the great
freedom
work.
and the launch of your 7-figure business. Nothing but success. We pray for you and your son. Thank you so much for sharing this with our audience today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.